Now, my memo today is about our pride and joy, our athletes. Kenya is known the world over for producing the best athletes in middle and long distance running. Since the 1960s, Kenya has produced more world-class athletes, more world record holders, and more Olympic medalists in long distance running than any other country on earth. In fact, the greatest marathoner of all time is our very own Eliud Kipchoge. Marathon world record holder, Olympic champion, winner of numerous marathon races, and full-time winner of the London Marathon. So good is Kipchoge that he has won 12 out of 13 marathon races he has entered. And he's now planning to run the marathon under 2 hours. And with his determination, hard work, and successes, we believe he can do it. Now, Kenya arrived at the world stage in 1964 Rome Olympics. I'm not sure if many of you know that, when Wilson Kiprugut Chuma became the first Kenyan ever to win an Olympic medal. He won bronze in the 800 meters. Then Naftali came, who won the first ever Kenyan Olympic gold in Mexico in 1968. Kipchoge Keino, Ben Jipcho, John Ngugi, Rose Tata Muya, Susan Sirma, Billy Conchela, Paul Tergat, Catherine Dereba, and Tegla Lorupe are just some of the notable Kenyans who have on numerous occasions lifted our hearts and spirits and made us proud to say, Najivunia kuwa Mkenya. These men and women toiled and gave it their all to lift high the Kenyan flag and make the motherland proud. They never succumbed to the temptation of shortcuts. The word doping was always an alien concept in Kenya. That is why recent cases of doping involving Kenyan athletes must be condemned by everyone who wishes Kenya well. Already, the country is dealing with the embarrassment of the 8-year ban of 2016 Olympic marathon champion Jemima Sumgong for using the prohibited substance EPO. A similar fate has befallen Rita Jepto, winner of 3 Boston Marathon titles, and also 3-time world 1500-meter champion Asbel Kiprop. In a country where many aspects of life seem to be going all wrong, our pride and joy in our athletes should be guarded jealously. There's absolutely no place for doping. The athletes have a duty to participate in sports with honesty and integrity. Kenyans very well know how amazing it feels to see our flag flying high in various stadia across the world in major competitions and listening to the beautiful melodious sounds of our national anthem filling the air over and over again as our athletes collect medal after medal after medal. That should never be taken away from us, not by the dopers, not by anyone else. We're eternally grateful to the Eliud Kipchoges and Bridget Kosgeis who keep our pride high even when everything else says otherwise. Bravo, keep going, keep conquering the world. That is my memo tonight.
Very interesting. Now, tonight, I want to pose a question. Is the fight against corruption on course? Well, one would argue that the process has lost some steam. The excitement that greeted the arrest of top national and county government officials has somewhat fizzled out. When Director of Public Prosecutions Nurdin Haji and Director of Criminal Investigations George Kinoti took over, there was renewed hope that finally the dragon of graft, wastage and pilferage of public resources would be slayed, that those who benefit from public resources would be punished and forced to pay back what they illegally took, that corruption would no longer be fashionable, a way of life, a sure means to instant and extreme riches. The public service would be a call to serve and not a call to amass, that public offices would no longer be an attraction for gluttons. But away from the big headlines, the dawn raids at home of corruption suspects, and the subsequent dramatic arrests, there is little to write home about in the war against corruption. What happened to President Uhuru Kenyatta's big announcement in Mombasa last year on lifestyle audit? And what became of the forensic and audit and vetting of public servants? The big talk with zero action? Well, Twalib Mubarak, the new broom at EACC, has his hands full. He must be driven by the desire for tangible results in the graft war, not drama, not headlines or fame. For Haji and Kinoti, public support in the fight against corruption is a highly perishable commodity. It is a delicate possession. Once the public feels the momentum is lost, or it is compromised, or politicized, or disjointed, the interest and goodwill fades away. Let real action begin. Let the real culprits in the Ruaraka land scam, the Aurora and Kimorel Dam saga, the SGR Rand compensation saga, the Afia House scandal, the NYS looting spree, and the wanton plunder of the devolved resources in the 47 counties fill the pinch. Otherwise, Kenyans will continue to be treated to endless episodes of, I quote, Vipindre in the series that is the fight against corruption. And at the end, let me end with 2 verses of a poem by Professor Nii Osundare, a prolific poet, dramatist, and literary critic from Nigeria. The poem's title is, "My Lord, tell me where to keep your bribe." My Lord, please tell me where to keep your bribe. Do I drop it in your venerable chambers, or carry the heavy booty to your immaculate mansion? Shall I bury it in the capacious water tank in your laundered backyard, or will it breathe better in the septic tank, since money can deodorize even the smelliest of crimes? That's my punchline.
Wow. To my kicker now. This morning we received reports from Homa Bay County that 24 Kenyan fishermen had been arrested and their boats impounded by Ugandan security forces in Lake Victoria. Late this evening, we got reports that the fishermen were released, but their boats were detained by the Ugandan policemen. Now, this is apparently what it means to be a Kenyan fisherman in Lake Victoria. You are either on your own or occasionally in the hands of marauding Ugandan security personnel. From the experiences of these fishermen, a picture is painted of Kenyan territorial waters that are hardly surveilled or governed by the government of Kenya. Do not be deceived by the rhetorical bravado displayed this week by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs against Somalia over the Indian Ocean boundary dispute. Forget about the courage-invoking deployment of the so-called dreaded units such as GSU and RDU against cattle rustlers. Don't even think of the swagger with which peaceful protesters are dispersed from the streets of Nairobi. When it comes to Uganda, this government goes, as Americans would say, CC. When it comes to Uganda, the foreign policy of this administration ranges from cowardly to weak, feeble to spineless, wimpish to utterly gutless. How else can one explain the successful conversion of Kenya's small share of Lake Victoria into a venue of some Ugandan diplomatic water sports? Fishermen are constantly harassed. They are arrested and released at the whims of the Ugandan security personnel in what looks like a single-team water polo. Then there is the matter of the Migingo Island, an unresolved dispute that has seen Uganda very successfully playing the big boy in Lake Victoria. President Yoweri Museveni, a man who generally finds it difficult to disguise his contempt, mocked Kenya about the Migingo Island. He famously admitted that, listen to this, Migingo Island is in Kenya, but the water around it belongs to Uganda. Now, that is what contempt sounds like. And though it may not know or admit it, President Museveni has got plenty of it for this government. And it shows. Now, each government can choose how it wishes to be regarded, including the undignifying spinelessness of this administration that it has chosen with regard to Uganda. But each administration should know 2 things are not variable: our sovereignty and our borders. They must be protected and, if needs be, defended. Instead of its shy and seemingly clueless approach to the Migingo Island dispute, this government should consider forwarding the matter to the International Court of Justice, ICJ, for resolution. This route is advantageous in 2 ways. 1, it is peaceful. And 2, it would save the administration the discomfort and sissy blushes of confronting President Yoweri Museveni. Just let the court do it then. In the meantime, this government should move to end the harassment of fishermen in Lake Victoria. I'm not asking for a tough statement like the one issued against Somalia that it seems would be punching above its weight. Let it quietly plead with President Museveni to keep the Ugandan waters around Migingo Island free of harassment for Kenyan fishermen. But you know, I will go to bed wondering what would have been if this administration was in office when General Idi Amin was president of Uganda in the 1970s. Idi Amin made some outrageous claims over Kenyan territory. And if it were under this administration, the Kenya-Uganda boundary would today be in Naivasha and not Malaba. That's my kicker.
Interesting. Interesting.
No sissy blushing, eh? Very well. My take tonight is about a subject I have touched on over and over again. But please bear with me. It needs re-emphasizing. This is about the growing culture of intolerance in this country. Intolerance to different ideas, the need to put everyone into a political box when you disagree on an issue. But this time, I will sum it up with just one word: contempt. Well, you see, it's becoming apparent that we must question nothing. Take everything as it is fed to us, in big spoonfuls, one after the next. Chew, swallow, digest. After all, the government knows everything, and you, dear Kenyan, know nothing. Here are a few examples. Now, as we pilot the new curriculum, questions are being raised about it: its cost, its methods, its effectiveness, the infrastructure. But what we have seen is what is now a classic response with this government: put up or shut up. These are not my words, rather those of C.S. Magoha, who said this to critics, and I quote, "If you have something better, why don't you tell us what it is, or shut up? The God of the poor shall deliver this curriculum to Kenyans, irrespective of a few ill-guided people who want to take it away from Kenyans." End quote. So basically, what he's saying to you is, up yours. He's not the only one. We have seen threats over the Huduma number registration exercise from government officials. In one instance, we're told that those who do not register will be declared aliens. The immigration PS is on record saying, and I quote, "If you are not in NIMS and you are applying for a passport, we will know very well that you are not a Kenyan." End quote. When it comes to the Housing Levy Fund, the government, clearly in contempt of a court order, went on to announce the start of deductions, forcing the Federation of Kenya Employers to go back to court seeking guidance on the matter, and thus forcing the government to pull back on its plans. Just to be clear, the word we're speaking about, contempt, this is what it means. It means the feeling that a person or a thing is worthless or beneath consideration. Synonyms for the word contempt: scorn, disdain, disrespect. This probably explains why a good number of people were lining up in droves to register for the Huduma number, even though some of them had expressed their misgivings. They have been beaten into submission by the endless threats and continuous madharau shown to them by those in leadership, those who think they know what is best for us, and we know nothing. You know, it almost feels like we're in an abusive relationship, and it's somewhat reminiscent of the one-party state era, where even the freedom of thought and dissent was prohibited. So what do? Well, probably we should begin with rejecting this notion of the big man syndrome. The bullies who admit to being buffaloes, the ones who are sometimes cheered on by some of us, claiming that they have the power to get things done. Secondly, why don't we try getting back to the idea of servant leadership? Now, I know this sounds cliche and you've heard it over and over, but it really does work. Listening twice as much as they speak. Listening to understand rather than to just respond. You see, it doesn't matter if you're a doctor, a professor, powerful politician with money and clout, or just a regular Kenyan walking the streets of Nairobi or some rural village out there. That is my take tonight.
Now, tonight, my angle is about what I see as an acute and ultimately dangerous degree of political madness, sycophancy, and incurable hypocrisy all put together. For the last 72 hours or so, social media has been abuzz with the name of one Aisha Jumwa, the MP for Malindi, who is fast distinguishing herself as a very strange politician indeed. The latest saga involves the Malindi MP praising her latest idol, the Deputy President William Ruto, to the point of redoing a popular Christian worship chorus in his favor. Now that chorus, which in its original unadulterated form exalts the unparalleled virtues of Jesus Christ, is held in extremely solemn regard by many Christians. As a practicing Pentecostal, I would know. Of course, I do not wish to dwell on the spiritual dimension of this, because spiritual matters are obviously very personal, and the MP probably has a good reason why she thinks the Deputy President is in the league of the divine. I also will not talk about the fact that the remarks on the song took place in a church setting in Bungoma. But what I'm more concerned about is a growing trend where politicians say some of the most ridiculous, even offensive things right in front of and supposedly on behalf of their chosen leader, and that leader does not rebuke them. It strikes me that this Aisha Jumwa song was sung right in front of the Deputy President. It also strikes me that the Deputy President never said anything about it. Of course, there is no requirement on the Deputy President to vet the songs his supporters will sing in his praise. But one would imagine that once it happens, he would either agree with it or rebuke the zealous supporter if they said things he did not agree with, especially sensitive issues of this nature. The great Nelson Mandela had exactly such a challenge when he took over South Africa at a time of great racial strife in 1994. He told off many of his zealous supporters who wanted him to go ahead and crush the oppressors of yesteryears. He chose the high road of nationalism and reconciliation, which was unpopular at the time, but was in fact the only sensible way of moving forward. I am moved to recall the events of September 1st, 2007 here in Kenya, moments after losing the ODM presidential ticket to Raila Odinga. The current Deputy President, then a key member of ODM, quoted the immortal words of former British explorer and Navy man James Cook, that he who wants to lead the orchestra must turn his back on the crowd. He was advising Raila Odinga against cheap populism as the ODM leader sought the highest office in the land. Tonight, that piece of advice of his own could be more relevant to him. Not just him, though. The Deputy President is just one, but all the political leaders in whose names political rallies are held in this country every weekend could also benefit from the advice. When will we start having courageous politicians who will tell off their zealous supporters when they go overboard? And by the way, Aisha Juma just announced that she's running for governor of Kilifi in 2022. Just an update. And that is my angle tonight.
Thanks for the update.
Interesting. I see people asking us, why are we not discussing the gold